The food is gone, and now silence weighs more than hunger. It's Noah again. Day 8 in the Ark. The food is gone. The supplies we had stored are nearly finished. The shelves are empty, and there's no more grain. The animals are quieter now, even the goats that usually bleat all the time. The silence inside the Ark is so loud, it's hard to ignore. It feels heavier than the hunger we're starting to feel. I woke up early today, like I always do. The sound of the Ark creaking, the water hitting the side of the ship, and the soft shuffle of the animals moving around are all familiar sounds. But today, they feel different. Today, the silence in between those sounds feels even more noticeable. The Ark seems so much bigger now. I know that doesn't make sense, but it feels like the walls are closing in on us. I went to check on the animals again. The goats, the horses, the lions, they're all here, but they seem tired. Even the birds are quieter than usual. They're all looking at me, but they don't make a sound. I know it's not just me. The silence is affecting all of us. The food, though. The food is what worries me the most. We have enough water for now, but without food, it doesn't matter. What will we do when the last bit of grain is gone? What will happen when the last scraps of what we have left are eaten? How long will we last? I don't know. I really don't know. And I can't keep pretending I do. If you're following along and want to know what happens inside the Ark, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support helps me keep going, even when things feel uncertain. I went back to check on my family. Nama, my wife, was awake. She's always awake early too, but today she was just staring out the window, looking at the endless water. She didn't look at me when I came in. Her eyes were empty, like she was lost in thought. The kids were still sleeping, but I could tell they weren't dreaming. They were too still, too quiet. I sat next to Nama. She turned and smiled faintly, but I could tell it wasn't a real smile. It was more of a tired expression, like she was trying to pretend everything was okay. But I knew it wasn't. "You okay?" I asked softly. She didn't answer right away. She just looked down at her hands. "No," she said finally, her voice quiet. "The food is gone. The kids are quieter every day. What will we do now?" I didn't know how to answer her. I don't think anyone knows what to do anymore. If you're reading this and want to follow along, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support means everything right now. We went through the usual routine. I tried to keep the children busy. Shem, the oldest, helped me check the animals, while Cam and Jaff tried to find something to play with. But it wasn't the same. They weren't laughing. They weren't talking. They just walked around, listless, looking at the ground. I tried to make them smile, but it was like they had forgotten how. The silence in the Ark was now so thick that it felt like it was pressing against us, making it hard to breathe. It was as if we were all trapped in this wooden ship, floating in the middle of an endless ocean, with no way out. The food was gone, and the fear of what that meant was starting to grow inside of me. I walked to the back of the Ark to check on the food stores again. Maybe I had missed something. Maybe there was more than I thought. But no, the grain was gone. The sacks were empty. I ran my hand over the empty bags, and I realized that there was nothing left. It was all gone. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how we got to this point, but it's real now, and I don't know what to do about it. If you're still with me and want to know what happens inside the Ark, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. It helps me know that someone is here with me. Later, Nama and I tried to talk. We didn't know what to say to the kids. We couldn't tell them that the food was gone, that we didn't have a plan. They were too young to understand, and I didn't want to scare them. But the silence kept growing between us, and I could feel the weight of it. Nama looked at me with tired eyes. "What are we going to do now?" I didn't have an answer. If you want to continue this journey and find out what happens next, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support gives me strength to continue. By the end of the day, the animals were even quieter. Even the lions, usually the loudest, were sitting quietly in their pens. It was as if the entire Ark had stopped moving, as if we were all waiting for something that wasn't coming. The silence was deafening. As I walked back to my family, I looked at the kids. They weren't playing, weren't laughing, weren't asking questions. They were just sitting there in silence. And I knew that something was happening to them. Something was happening to all of us. The silence wasn't just something we heard, it was something we felt deep inside. And that feeling was growing stronger every day. If you're still following along and want to see what happens next, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. It really helps me keep going, even when it feels like everything is slipping away. It's no again. Another day in the ark. The food is gone. There's no more grain left. There's no more meat. We've eaten the last of it, and now we're relying on what little water we have left. The silence is louder than anything I've ever heard before. It's as if the ark itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen, something none of us can understand. But we're trapped in here, with nothing to do but wait and hope. And as the days go by, the silence is becoming harder to ignore. I woke up this morning with the same feeling I've had for days now, a heavy weight in my chest. The sound of the ark creaking, the movement of the animals, and the soft waves hitting the sides are all familiar sounds. But today, they felt different. The creaking is louder, the water sounds like it's moving faster, and the animals, they're so quiet now. They're not eating, they're not playing. They're just staring into the empty space, as if they too are waiting for something to happen. I walked over to where the animals are kept. The goats, the horses, the lions, they're all still here. But they're quieter. They don't move around as much. They seem tired, even more than usual. Their eyes, though, are wide open, and there's a kind of fear in them. They're not scared of me. They're scared of something else. Something we can't see, but they can. I checked the food stores again, hoping that somehow maybe I had missed something. But no, it's all gone. Every sack of grain is empty. There's nothing left to feed the animals, nothing left to feed us. We're running out of time, and with no food, we're running out of hope too. If you're following this journey with me and want to know what happens next, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support means everything to me right now, and it helps me keep writing. I went back to the family. Nama was sitting in the corner, looking at the children. She hadn't said much to me today. I knew what she was thinking. We both knew the same thing, but no one was saying it out loud. We were running out of food, and we had no way of getting more. There was nothing we could do to fix it. I sat beside her, trying to find something comforting to say, but my words felt empty. What could I say? It's going to be okay? That wouldn't be the truth. We weren't okay. The silence was louder than the hunger. It was everywhere. The kids were sitting in silence, staring at nothing. They weren't playing. They weren't talking. They weren't even asking questions anymore. They just sat there, in the same spot, waiting for something to happen. But nothing was happening. We were stuck. If you're still here and want to know what's really going on inside the ark, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support helps me keep going, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. The day passed in the same way. We went through the motions, but nothing felt real anymore. The food was gone, the animals were restless, and the children were silent. Nama and I tried to keep up the routine, but it felt pointless. The silence was so thick that we could hardly talk without feeling like we were disturbing something in the air. I decided to check the animals one more time. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there was something more I could do. But no, the goats weren't eating. The lions were pacing, and the birds were just sitting in their cages, staring at nothing. Even the doves, who used to be so loud and active, were quiet. I sat down beside them and stared into their eyes, looking for any sign that they knew what was going on. But they didn't look back at me. Their eyes were empty. Empty like the food storage. Empty like everything else in this place. The silence was taking over everything. The ark felt smaller every day, as if it was shrinking around us. The space that had once felt so vast and open, felt like a cage. And there was nothing I could do to change it. There was no way out. If you're following along and want to see how the story unfolds, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. It really helps me know that I'm not alone in this. As I walked through the ark, checking on the animals, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was moving in the shadows. I didn't know what it was, but I could feel it, just out of sight, moving with us. I wasn't sure if it was my mind playing tricks on me, or if there really was something else in here with us. But I couldn't ignore it. I started walking faster, not wanting to turn around. I didn't want to know what was behind me, but I had to keep going. I had to find out. I had to know if we were really alone in this place, or if something else was in the ark with us. And if it was, what did it want? If you want to know what happens next, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support keeps me going when everything else feels uncertain. By the time I got back to the family, it was almost dark. The kids had moved to a corner, huddling together for warmth. Nama had her arms wrapped around them, trying to comfort them, but I could see that even she was scared now. I sat down beside them, but no one said anything. The silence was so thick now that it felt like it was suffocating us. We were all just waiting for something to change, but nothing changed. It's no again, and I still don't know how to make sense of what's happening inside this ark. The food is gone, and the silence is louder than the hunger. It's like the ark is breathing with us, growing heavier as each day passes. I keep thinking about the days before the flood, before everything changed. Back then, I had a plan, a purpose. But now, we're all drifting, with no clear path ahead. And the silence, it's unbearable. I woke up this morning with a sinking feeling in my stomach. The first thing I noticed was how still the ark was. There were no sounds from the animals, no birds chirping, no hooves stamping, no bleating from the goats. The only sound was the water hitting the sides of the ark, but even that felt muffled, as if the world outside was retreating further away. I went to check on the animals again. The goats were huddled in a corner, their eyes wide and unblinking. The lions were pacing, but they weren't roaring. They were quiet, too quiet. The birds were sitting in their cages, not moving, just staring at nothing. It's like they were waiting for something, but they didn't know what. I looked around the ark. I couldn't find any answers. No food, no sound, just emptiness. If you're still with me, and you want to know what happens next inside the ark, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support keeps me going, even when everything feels like it's slipping away. I walked to the back of the ark, where we've been storing the last of our supplies. I thought maybe, just maybe, there was something I missed. But no, the shelves were empty. The grain was gone. The water was almost finished. How had it all disappeared so quickly? I had planned for this. I had calculated how much we would need, but it wasn't enough. And now, there was nothing left. As I stood there, staring at the empty shelves, I heard something. A soft sound, like a footstep. It came from behind me, but when I turned, there was no one there. No animals, no children, no Nama, just the empty space. I could feel my heart racing. What was that sound? Was it my imagination? Or was something moving in the ark? I didn't know, but I couldn't ignore it. Something was out there, something we couldn't see, but we could all feel it. I hurried back to where Nama and the kids were. When I walked into the room, Nama looked up at me with worry in her eyes. "What's wrong, No?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't know what to say. How could I tell her that I heard something? How could I tell her that I felt like we weren't alone? I didn't know what to believe anymore. I didn't know what was real. If you want to know what happens next, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support helps me keep going when everything feels uncertain. I sat down beside Nama. She was holding the children close, trying to comfort them, but the fear in her eyes was clear. The kids were silent, staring into the distance, not saying anything. It was like they were waiting for something too. But what were we waiting for? The storm had passed. The flood was over. The ark was no longer shaking. It was just us, and the silence. I wanted to ask them, to talk to them, but the words didn't come. What could I say? How could I explain what was happening when I didn't understand it myself? Shem, the oldest, was the first to speak. His voice was soft, almost scared. "Dad, why can't we hear the animals anymore? Why aren't they making noise?" I looked at him, trying to find the right words, but there was no easy answer. "I don't know, son. Maybe they're just tired. They've been in this place for so long, just like us. Maybe they're waiting too." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't the truth. I could feel it in my bones. The silence wasn't normal. It wasn't just the animals being tired. It was something else. something I couldn't explain. If you're still following along and want to know what's really happening in the ark, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support gives me the strength to keep going, even when everything feels so strange. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I couldn't sleep. The silence was suffocating. I got up, grabbed the lantern, and started walking through the ark. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit here and wait for whatever this was to take us. As I walked through the dark corridors, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I turned quickly, but there was no one there. Just the shadows, the creaking wood, and the faint sound of the ark moving in the water. I went all the way to the back of the ark, where the animals are kept. I wanted to check on them one more time. Maybe I had missed something. Maybe there was something I could do to ease the tension, to break the silence. But when I got there, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The cages were open. The doors that had been tightly secured were now ajar. The goat's pen was empty. The lion's cage was open, but there were no lions inside. The doves were gone. I froze. How could this have happened? We had locked everything carefully. No one could have opened the cages without me noticing. But here we were, with the animals gone, and the silence heavier than ever. If you're still with me on this journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support helps me keep going when everything feels so wrong. I ran back to the family, my heart racing. I didn't know what to say, but I knew I couldn't keep it from them any longer. They had to know what was happening. We weren't just running out of food. We were running out of time. When I got back to them, Nama was already awake, looking at me with wide eyes. "What happened?" she asked, her voice full of fear. I couldn't find the words. All I could do was point to the back of the ark. The animals were gone, and now, we were really alone. I ran back to the family, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't believe what I had seen. The cages were open. The animals were gone. I had locked them all securely, and yet, here I was, standing in the middle of the ark, surrounded by nothing but the heavy silence that pressed against me from all sides. When I reached Nama and the kids, I could see the fear in their eyes. They knew something was wrong. They could feel it too. I couldn't hide it anymore. "Nama, the animals are gone," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "All of them. The cages were open. There's nothing left." She looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. How could this happen? I didn't have an answer. I didn't know how it happened. I didn't know how they got out. But the truth was undeniable. The animals were gone, and with them, any sense of normalcy that we had left. The children were sitting quietly, staring at the floor. They hadn't said a word since I came back, but I could see the fear in their faces. Shem, the oldest, was the first to speak. "Dad, where did they go?" he asked softly, his voice full of confusion and fear. "I don't know," I replied, shaking my head. "I don't know, Shem, but something is wrong. Something is moving in this ark, and we're not alone." Nama walked over to the children and wrapped her arms around them. She looked at me, and I could see the worry on her face. "What do we do now, No?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The food is gone, and the animals are gone. What are we supposed to do?" I stood there for a moment, not knowing how to answer. What could I say? The truth was, I didn't know what to do. We were stuck in this ark, with no food and no animals, and the silence was suffocating us. The walls felt like they were closing in on us, and there was nowhere to go. We had nowhere to run. If you're still following along and want to see what happens next, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support means everything to me right now, and it helps me keep going. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that strange sound again, the soft tapping, like footsteps, echoing in the dark corners of the ark. I got up, grabbed my lantern, and walked through the corridors, trying to find the source of the noise. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. It was like someone or something was moving around, but I couldn't see it. I walked to the back of the ark, where I had seen the animals earlier, but there was nothing. No sign of them. No sign of anything. The cages were still open, but there were no footprints, no marks. It was as if they had disappeared into thin air. I stood there for a moment, feeling a chill run down my spine. The silence was so thick it felt like it was closing in on me. I had to find out what was going on. I couldn't just ignore it anymore. I started walking again, this time moving faster, as if I were being pulled by something I couldn't see. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me, watching me from the shadows. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. Just the darkness and the faint flicker of my lantern. When I reached the main chamber of the ark, I stopped. I could hear breathing, heavy, labored breathing. It was coming from the shadows. I raised my lantern and looked around, but there was nothing. Nothing except the silence. Then, I heard it again. The soft sound of something moving. Something small, fast, almost imperceptible. It was coming closer. I stepped back, my heart racing. The breathing was louder now, and I could feel it. Something was moving in the dark, and it wasn't an animal. It wasn't one of my children. It was something else. If you want to know what happens next, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support helps me keep going when everything else feels so uncertain. I grabbed the nearest piece of wood and raised it, just in case. But as soon as I moved, the breathing stopped. I froze, listening for any sound, but the ark was silent again. The kind of silence that makes you question if what you heard was real. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my lantern shaking in my hand. What was that sound? Was it an animal? Was it one of my children? No, it couldn't have been. They were all asleep, or at least they should have been. I stepped forward cautiously, still holding the wood. I moved closer to the shadows, where the sound had come from, but when I got there was nothing. Just the empty space, the creaking wood, and the soft sway of the ark in the water. If you want to find out what happens inside the ark and what's really going on, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support means everything to me. I went back to the family, my heart still pounding. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I should tell them what happened. How could I explain it? How could I tell them that there was something in here with us? Something that we couldn't see, but that was real. Nama was waiting for me. She could see the fear in my eyes. She didn't ask. She didn't need to. She knew something was wrong. I took a deep breath and sat down beside her. We're not alone, I said quietly. There's something in here with us. Something. I don't know what it is, but I know it's here. Her face paled. She didn't say anything at first, but I could see the fear in her eyes. I could see it in the kids too. They were looking at me, but they weren't speaking. They could feel it too. We'll figure this out, I said, trying to sound reassuring. We'll be okay. But I wasn't sure if I believed that anymore.